Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Elizabeth Funk, founder and CEO of DignityMoves, to discuss how businesses can drive positive impact in microfinance and alleviating poverty. Elizabeth, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
You got it. And give us some background on DignityMoves. What was the genesis behind it?
DignityMoves was started by a group of members from Young Presidents Organization, YPO, CEOs and presidents who came together to learn about this homelessness crisis because it just didn't make sense to us that we keep spending so much money and the problem keeps getting worse. So as we analyzed it, we saw that there were some really glaring opportunities where the private sector might be able to step in and drive change that was different than current programs. So there we started DignityMoves.
How does DignityMoves, how are their communities making a difference?
DignityMoves is focused on providing interim housing for people. In California and across the West Coast, we tend to prioritize our budgets on building permanent housing, which is really expensive and takes a long time. And while that's important, very important, the problem is that in the meantime, people are languishing on the streets. And as they languish on the streets, the trauma that sets in makes it harder and harder for them to return to self-sufficiency. So we're about building places that are dignified, where people can come and get help and get a shower and have a place to stay and be stable and try to work on other outcomes other than waiting for that permanent supportive housing.
So how do you merge this idea of compassion with innovation? Where does innovation come into play for lasting change? Because it's one thing to build these types of communities and have these ideas in place, but you also need to have the people want to come and really leverage it to find a way out and create a more concrete path forward.
We looked at all of the barriers that are standing in the way of getting people indoors and took a big step back and said, how can we think about it differently? So the first is that people don't want to go to group shelters, be on a bunk bed with a stranger. I wouldn't either. And so the first innovation is everyone gets their own room with a door that locks. That's fundamental. But where can we build these? Land is expensive. Okay, great. We'll set them up where they're relocatable. We can borrow land from developers who've got projects that are being delayed. But the most important thing is this is a housing emergency. And so we can use FEMA's emergency codes and build without foundations, build them really, really fast, just like an emergency.
Yeah. Where does microfinance come into play? How are businesses contributing to that? How is microfinance also helping to create a path forward?
My microfinance work was primarily in developing countries, working on extreme poverty, which is helping people help themselves build their own way out of poverty. And here in the US, it's sort of the same idea. DignityMoves is about giving people an opportunity to try to rebuild their lives rather than be automatically assumed that they're going to be in permanent supportive housing forever. So this is a place to stop that progression on the way to permanent housing and really work hard on other outcomes, helping them return to self-sufficiency. It might be a microfinance loan. It might just be helping them get a job, reunite with family. There are lots of other ways that people can exit homelessness if they are given an opportunity in a safe place and also some supportive care.
Do you have any plans for expansion at this point?
Oh my goodness, this model has taken off. I think it's largely based on the fact that all of a sudden there's now urgency for dealing with the unsheltered, particularly way more than ever, thanks to COVID. So our first projects were San Francisco and Santa Barbara. We've got 17 projects across California in various stages of planning. And this is also applicable nationally. We're helping work on a project in Atlanta, working on even expanding maybe Vancouver. So this is replicable anywhere.
Do you have any success stories that you could share with us?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. It's so touching. People say, once I finally get indoors, all of a sudden I can take a deep breath. In fact, my dad said I should name this organization A Deep Breath, because that's really what it is. It's a place for people to come. And then once they feel stable, we've had people get jobs again. I've had a tearful reunion with somebody's mother who finally, she was willing to admit that she was homeless. She'd been ashamed and reunite with her family. But, there's a woman that is most sticks in my mind who had been suffering from a domestic violence situation. She finally got out. She wouldn't go to a group shelter. She shouldn't. It's not safe. And so she was so afraid to let herself fall asleep that she went to the Tenderloin and started asking around. I need to find this thing called meth because it's safer than letting myself fall asleep. And she didn't need to do that. And now she's at DignityMoves and she's got her 30-day Narcotics Anonymous chip. And she got a prescription for methadone because she got connected to a doctor. And she's working on rebuilding from that. But she said, I wouldn't have needed to turn to drugs if I had a safe place to be. That's why we're doing this.
All right, Elizabeth, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you.